everyone to Group 5 on the day of the Learning and Teaching Symposium for 2022. I'd like to warmly welcome colleagues to this talk, to this session. It's going to be a session covering two talks. The first one being optimising and enhancing mental wealth modules in a post-pandemic world, followed by the second session, which will be covering inclusivity within the fashion curriculum. So the two sessions are going to commence. We're looking at two 25-minute presentations, following by 15 minutes opportunity discussion. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to hand over to our first presentation. That's Prabha and Andrea. So if I can hand over to you, we'll have the opportunity to discuss questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's a nice small group, I could individually address everyone. Hi, Leslie, Donna, Louise, Kevin, Jason, Sophia, Richard, Noel, Kevin, yeah. And so welcome to our presentation. So before I start sharing the slides, so basically the title of our talk is Optimizing Mental Health Modules in the Post-Pandemic World. And I thought I might just very quickly get your thoughts as to what you're expecting out of our presentation. It just gets us thinking as well as to where we are. Anyone, Donna, Louise, Kevin, what maybe got you into this room and what are you looking forward to?
Okay, hi, morning.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. What got me into this room was the mental wealth title. So I work for the OIE, and part of the work I've been doing when I was an intern for them was reviewing mental wealth modules.
Right.
So it's really interesting, the variety and what happens in mental wealth. So I just really, the optimizing was the other word that triggered me, like how can we optimize mental wealth and what does it really mean in 6 schools, numerous departments? How can that work? So yeah, that's my curiosity today.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, because I did gather that a lot of people who are going to come here are going to have that interest in mental wealth, so which is really nice to know. I think we also have on the chat, Louise has said that I'm quite new to UEL. It's quite new, so just interested to know how we are adapting. So I'm quite happy that, to an extent, hopefully, you'll kind of get something, but more than that, I think what we're looking at this presentation as is a way of just showcasing what we have done, but also getting ideas from you. I think the whole idea out here is, as a community, we kind of share our ideas and our thoughts on how these things have been running or what we can do better over the period of years. So I'll just share my screen and just give me a second. So hopefully you can see my slides. So to start off with, it's nice that we introduce ourselves. So one of the things about our presentation is that we have pitched it as a joint or cross-school presentation because some of our initiatives that we had, we tapped into the expertise of different schools. So we have the School of Biosciences from where I come. So I'm Prabha, and basically I am a senior lecturer at the School of Biosciences. We have Sophia here. Sophia, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm also from the School of Biosciences. I'm a senior lecturer, and I am the module leader for the module which has been intervented, has been worked upon.
Andrea, do you want to go next?
Yes. Hi, my name is Andrea, and I'm the program director for the Master in Applied Positive Psychology and Coaching Psychology. But I have a dual role. I have a second role, and this is the one it's important for today's meeting. And I'm also co-director of the Wellbeing and Psychological Services Center, which is a UEL initiative in the School of Psychology.
Ardiana?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ardiana. I'm the Senior Administrative Officer working within the School of Psychology with Andrea.
So thank you. So basically what we're going to do is, firstly, I'll just lead the presentation. And the whole idea out here was to just set up the tone as to what the context is in which we were trying to optimize a module. and draw upon, what kind of initiatives we came and what kind of led to those initiatives and why really the optimization. I would thereafter hand it to Andrea from the School of Psychology, and she's going to be specifically talking about coaching, which is one of our key initiatives which we brought in. So I don't know how many of you here are from UEL, because when I looked at the list of participants, I realized many of them are from external universities. So I thought I'll just start off with this word itself, mental wealth. And on the university website, it states that mental wealth guarantees that you leave with more than just academic expertise. And it essentially hints at soft skill development, which in fact, in the post-pandemic era, there have been several reports, including a recent report from McKinsey, which highlights that we increasingly, I think the focus for employers is going to be how equipped our graduates are with these soft skills. And so it's not surprising that this is almost at the heart of any program that we have. Now, the context that we have here is a level 5 module, which is what Sophia basically has been the module lead for several years. And her inputs were very, very crucial to actually developing our initiatives. So the module is called Research and Career Development. And when we say level 5, we mean year 2, and it's taken by several biosciences degree. It's fairly a very large cohort. I don't know the exact numbers. I know like Sophia is really good at numbers. As I know, it's 120 students. And what we do is we target several subject-specific skills. For example, what we've showcased here is a poster. So these are the kind of posters which students would be making, which is a skill in itself, which they require when they pursue a career, either as a healthcare practitioner or as a researcher in the future. But what we integrate this with is the development of soft skills, which is where the mental wealth component comes in. So essentially, this poster, for example, it's not an individual poster. It's a group poster. So we expect students we put them in groups of 3 or 4, and they come up with a group poster. And the whole idea is that through this experience, and as it's also linked to the assessment and it has some stakes out there, there's an incentive for students to work as a group. And that experience essentially leads to team working skills, the development of team working skills, just one of those soft skills, which is going to be the major focus, at least for the initial part of this talk. Now, the issue out here, or rather, I should bring up this question as to why do we think about optimization? And I think for me as an academic, what kind of strikes out is just my own personal journey that, when we are trained as academics, we have the core knowledge of our subject area, which is what we're very good at conveying, either through lectures, seminars, or different modes. But when it comes to soft skill developments, it's like, hey, what do I do? And other than initiatives like these, we really do not know how we can support students much better. And that's really the place from where I pick it up. And in context of teamwork, my research in teamwork kind of started off almost 5 years back when I started putting students in team. And that's when it kind of became very clear that, and this is really a question for you also to think about, that really, if we start putting students in a group and ask them to complete an SS piece of work, are we saying that this experience by itself will lead to the development of team working skills? And some of you may disagree, but at least from my experience to talking to academics, at least most academics feel there is definitely a need for us to support students more. And I think I would like to pick up on 2 main experiences that we as academics have had. And I know like Sophia and I shared this quite some number of times before we took this forward, that sometimes when you look at the product of a group, for example, in this case, it's a scientific poster, what we often find is that even in the groups which are seemingly working extremely fine, extremely well, but the poster itself does not reflect that. There's clearly a gap, an area where students could be working more efficiently. So as a tutor, I think there is a need for us to help students get to that higher level of efficiency. The second thing, which is an experience, not so much from UEL because I just joined here last year, but I have been involved with a lot of discussions with student teams, especially when conflicts arise. And when you start talking to students, what you kind of realize is a lot of emphasis that students lay when they come together as a group is on the SS task. It's almost like that becomes the dominant issue, which is not surprising because students are going through a journey where assessments are quite crucial and it drives learning. But the problem that assessment drives learning also means that we don't know. And often what happens is students are not focusing on the processes, for example, that would enable them to achieve that higher level of efficiency. For example, how would they communicate with each other? What kind of tools are they going to be using? What would they do in case they face any problems? So these are just some of those challenges which we face. Again, not very unique challenges, because what we often see is several support elements which many of us try and include within our curriculum or our modules. For example, team building sessions or team training sessions. But what do you think? How would students really perceive this? And again, something that I've often probed in several of our student meetings and also in staff-student liaison groups. And this is what they come up with. They feel it's rather very patronizing. They question you, well, what is that you're doing here? That's theory. This does not happen in practice. What you're telling us, we can't really implement it within our groups because you do not understand what happens there. We are essentially a member who's outside the group. So really, given by these challenges, this is what kind of started off our whole step towards how do we optimize these modules better? What can we do which is novel and more innovative and possibly would have a much higher impact and have some real impact as on students and how they work in student teams? So to understand that, of course, we need to know what students say about how tutors can help. And what we did at this stage was use an evidence-based approach. And the evidence that we tapped into was, of course, the existing literature, but more importantly was from two projects which I had done prior to coming to UEL. And this was a student partnership project, which was a four-week long project where basically involved a lot of interactive discussion with students, but I also had semi-structured interviews, which I had conducted with 11 students, where basically I was asking them how the team experience was. And we looked at, the behaviors that were existing within the teams and what factors actually enabled them to adopt some behaviors or not. And more crucially, how tutors could help them or what initiatives did they see which really helped them. And there were three main broad themes that came up from this evidence. The first one was the fact that some students felt that the inclusion of a team contract helps. So what's a team contract? So when we did this in my previous university, we included a team contract, which was a mandatory part, during which students would come up with policies and norms as to how they want to work. So some of these students said that the behaviors that were set, for example, their ability to ask for help, was very crucially projected down to this time when they drafted their team contract. The second major theme was tutor interaction. So these tutors, they associated them as those who were experts in their field. So activities such as, when the tutor gets students to present something before they come to the meeting, or where the tutor is able to clarify certain doubts around the subject area, was again something that students felt that really fostered their team working skills. But finally, the one which students which really made us think about what we were doing now are activities that they said promoted reflexivity. So when we talk about reflexivity here, we mean it's a team event where the team reflects as a whole on what they're doing, and they're given the time and the space to do that. And crucially, it was these three main themes that inform what we were doing now in this module and trying to address those challenges, but also trying to optimize it, trying to achieve a much higher level of learning for our students. And these strategies essentially centered around a coaching approach. And I'm going to be, in the next slide, leaving that to Andrea, who is the expert, which is why we kind of collaborated with the School of Psychology to take it forward. But just to kind of emphasize, I think what we kind of realized was that also that the optimization is never a single strategy. It can never work with a single strategy. It has to have a multi-pronged approach, which is why we also optimize several other components in this module. For example, we introduced a team contract and a team orientation session, but the orientation session had a different purpose. The purpose out here was to bring in that buy-in for the coaching approach. And we had some changes which we made to the assessment criteria to basically address some of the students' needs, but also to, again, create the buy-in and also to make it more aligned to our learning outcomes. So what I'm going to do is move on to the next slide, but then I leave it to Andrea to take it forward from here. Andrea, up to you now.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabha, and thanks everyone. Before I come back, to the actual project that Prabha has described very, very well, I would like to explain just a little bit very quickly, what is the Wellbeing and Psychological Services Center, because when Sophia and Prabha approached us was because of the works we are doing in the center. So as I said, the WPS Center is an initiative of the School of Psychology, and we want to work with industry standard training, and using a psychological approach. Actually, coaching is used in many companies, so it's not something different that we do at university. Actually, we are creating a link between, what we offer our students when they are studying and what they are going to find out when they move, to the work, life, to their employments, what they will find there if they need to work in teams. So said that, can you move to the next one, Prabha? Sorry, it's like the old days.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, well, as I said, when Sophia and Prabha, approached us, we had a first conversation and we thought, well, how can we, contribute, or what would be our contribution, to these 160 students that they are going to be working in teams and in small groups. So what we have in the WPS Center, in the Master in Applied Positive Psychology and Coaching Psychology, we have around 500 students every year. It's a quite large program. And one of our desire, outcomes, one of the things we want to do is to offer them placements. So when they complete the master, they have work experience. So we think it's a win-win, because when UEL students need support, we have our students ready to offer this support. And what we did with Prabha and Sophia was to start by a needs analysis. So we had some meetings and they explained us, what they were doing, what the project was. And then we thought from a psychological perspective and positive psychology perspective, what we could do, to support the students. So we wrote a proposal. And in this proposal, we decided that we were going to offer group coaching. And I must say, it was for two reasons. One, because the students were going to work in groups. So it sounded like a good thing, that they received coaching in their groups, but also because we didn't have at that point enough coaches available, and it was, well, the best option we could offer. So we wrote the proposal and we had one informative session with the students. We went to one of the sessions with Sophia and Prabha students, and we explained them, the project and what they were going to do in groups. So then the 160 students were divided in groups of 8 students each, and we offer 4 group coaching sessions. All our coaches were supervised, so we were supervising the process, and then there was a final assessment. So this is in a nutshell, the process we follow together. But probably you're asking yourself, well, why coaching, or what is coaching? And this is the next slide. And actually, there are many ways, different ways to understand coaching. But we understand coaching as a support that we can offer students to raise their self-awareness, to improve both at personal and professional level. Because as Prabha was saying, one of the challenges for employability is not only what you know, but who you are. you're gonna be judged, in the interviews about who you are as a person. So what we try to do through coaching and positive psychology, it's also help students, to raise their self-awareness and to develop some soft skills like social intelligence, optimism, resilience, proactivity, flexibility. You name all the things that students need, and they need to be equipped to go into the coaching world, into the employment world, sorry. So, and we use coaching there are 3 different approaches that we can consider. Sometimes we offer one-to-one coaching. For example, now we are starting, and if anyone is interested, you can contact us, a project that has been approved by the OFS, and it's called Coaching for Academic Success. And in that case, we offer one-to-one coaching to students. But in this case, we thought that group coaching and a mixture of group coaching and team coaching was going to be the ideal, approach with these students, because one of the aims was to support them, to help them to work together. And if you have ever, asked your students to do a group work, you probably, or if you've experienced that as a student, you probably know that it's not easy. There are people that work more, people that work less, there are misunderstandings. So we wanted to support them, to create a strong team that could achieve the final, outcome that was creating this research presentation. The next one, Prabha, I think it's the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's
No,
the second
2
last
more.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 more.
So there is some, there are some experiences, in higher education using group coaching. And because of this experience and because of our experience, but we have from the research perspective, we know that coaching can enhance, team performance, can help in communication, self-awareness of oneself and others. Also, it can help, and it did in this case, when there are some conflicts. Well, how do we manage conflict in a group, problem solving? So all these aspects, have been suggested in some of the research, and probably moving forward, one of our aims is to do more research on this experience that we are doing at UEL.
Shall I move to the next slide?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay.
So we would love to say that the experience was outstanding, it was completely successful. And no, we recognize there was quite a good degree of success, and it was really positive both for the students and for us as lecturers. But also we recognize that there are some things that if we repeat it this year, we would like, to review. So we think, that the group coaching contributed to the overall success of the students in the assessment and the tasks they needed to do, but also they learn, how to work together and how to relate to each other. One of the things we want to improve is the pre-coaching sessions, because we think that students need to understand better the project. They need to understand that the coaching sessions, they are not a teaching session, they are something different. And we did, one session, but with probably will do, more than one, or we will change the way we explain students, what is the aim of coaching there. The other big question, not only in this project, but in every project, is if coaching should be voluntary and compulsory. As coaching psychologists, we always say that coaching should be voluntary, but then when we work with students, because we want to include everyone, we make it compulsory, and this is a conversation, ongoing conversation that we need to have with the students for them to understand the benefits of what we are doing. Also, one of the things, the sessions we did in these projects were open, so the students could come to us and would say, well, what would you like to discuss? How can this help you in the project that you're doing? But we are thinking that moving forward, probably having a topic will support or will help some students that engage less in the conversation. And when I say a topic, it could be, for example, flexibility. Why do we need flexibility when we work with a group? And then from a positive psychology perspective, we can talk about what flexibility is. And then that could help them, to relate the topic with the experience they are having. As Prabha said, we've done some, pre and post assessments, but this is something we also want to improve if we repeat the project. The other questions I said before, well, one-to-one coaching or group coaching. We think that for this kind of project, group coaching or team coaching is the best option, because actually what we want the students is to learn how to work with other people, how to work with the team. And when they move to employment after they complete their studies, they will need to know how to work in groups. And we all know, all the conflicts that may happen within a team. So we think this is a skill they can develop in the mental wealth models. And in general, the idea in this project and for the WPS Center is to optimize, the mental wealth models, but by working with other lectors, in this case, Sophia and Prabha, but working together to bring, this part of the mental wealth model that probably as a lecturer you are not an expert, because there is this psychological component. So if we can work together, we think we can optimize what we offer to our students. Don't know if you want to add something, Prabha. I'm aware of the time and worried about
I
Jason.
think that's absolutely fine. And I think I'd just like to maybe reiterate that what we're presenting here is basically reflections from a pilot project. We were quite aware that when we started off that there's going to be a pilot which is going to inform, changes, not just at the module level, because we've been talking a lot about the module level, but possibly at the program level, which is where it's best placed as we think about how this is going to progress for a student over a period of, the 3 years of the degree that they pursue with us. So I'm going to stop there. And I know that I have my next slide is for questions, but as I understand, the questions are going to be at the end. So, but I'll let Kevin talk about that. Like, I don't know what's the rhythm here. Sorry, I'm just trying to, yeah.
That's great. Okay, thank you for that presentation. I've got some questions that I have after that presentation. Obviously, we're going to move on to Jason, and other people get the opportunity to cover some points too. Yeah, it's great, kind of like some of those points that you covered, especially around kind of the conversations and the back channels that kind of like you tried to tap into and like bring to the foreground. Be really interesting to kind of discuss after Jason's presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Jason Forrest. Is going to be covering a presentation on inclusivity within the fashion curriculum. So thank you, Jason, and over to you.
Thank you, Kevin, and also great presentation, Prabha and Andrea. I'm just going to share my screen, so just bear with me. Look at this. Can you let me know if you can see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can see the presentation.
That's perfect, that's brilliant. Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to my presentation on inclusivity within the curriculum. My name is Jason Forrest, course leader for the BA Fashion Marketing course within the University of East London. Today's presentation highlights the importance of rethinking communities post-pandemic and the importance of liminality to support our student experience through the methodologies of both autoethnography and action research. And this will support my senior fellowship application, along with forthcoming academic papers. Equity and inclusion play a critical role in shaping students' confidence and self-worth in accordance with the core UEL values and Vision 2028 strategy. Internal collaborations with departments such as the Career Zone, the External Relations, the Fashion Faculty, and the OIE departments have supported the vision for this undergraduate course, allowing students to know their worth and address bias through facilitated workshops. This has not been possible without the support of my colleagues, which are both Alison Lowe and Sharon Hughes, not forgetting Head of Departments, Beatrice Newman and Leslie Robinson, for allowing creative autonomy to reimagine a curriculum which addresses societal issues through the lens of fashion marketing. So just to provide some context of what I'm going to be delivering this morning, I've broken it down into the 4 stages. So the first is a little more bit about me, how societal factors influence my curriculum, planning an inclusive curriculum, and then looking at student feedback on the inclusive curriculum itself. So before I actually get started, I actually wanted to sort of get some engagement and to share and be able to, for you to share your thoughts and around the topic and the word of inclusivity or inclusive and what that actually means within a HE setting. So I'm going to put sort of like 2 minutes on the clock and just get you to think about in your own words. And if you could populate this in the chat, that'd be really great for me to be able to understand what your interpretation is of the term, what makes teaching in higher education inclusive. So if you wouldn't mind just having a think about what you think that particularly looks like or feels like within your own practice, and if you could populate that in the chat, that'd be great. The 2 minutes starts now. And I'll sort of give a point of where you think, when I actually get to a minute, what that looks like. We've got 1 minute 30 on the clock, which is left. It's brilliant. Thank you, Donna. So thinking about planning and adapting to engaging students, that's brilliant. Sophia's put tolerance, understanding, appreciation for a viewpoint, which is brilliant. Thank you so much for that. You've got equal opportunities for all learners from different backgrounds needs to be brilliant. This is fantastic. So thank you so much for the engagement in relation to putting these prompts together. And I can still see some that are still coming through, which is really, really great. I just wanted to sort of give my overview and my answer of what I wanted to, how I address the question, and sort of with across course content, I look at really thinking about this big idea statement and what that means and try and solidify that within less than 20 words. And it's an activity that I give to our students. And for me, it's about providing an inclusive curriculum which nurtures students' liminality and employability relevant to the sector of fashion marketing. And again, this was really evident yesterday at the graduation, and knowing some of the students will be continuing onto careers within brands such as ASOS, the Fashion Minority Report, you've got Marks and Spencer's and Phase 8, along with one of our students who's going on to study international business at another university, which for me is a personal objective to work on to make sure that we retain our students that want to go on to higher courses at MA level. But I was really touched by the response from both parents and their partners on the importance of inclusivity within the curriculum, along with allowing the voice of young people to be heard and accepted. And there was, as I was talking to the parents and partners yesterday, what resonated, one of them mentioned the Nelson Mandela quote, which is, education is the most powerful weapon which can be used to change the world. And I just really think that's a poignant quote, a mantra, which resonates not just with people from African and Caribbean backgrounds, but something that, again, that helps to push the direction of the fashion marketing course itself. So just a little bit about me in summary. So my career and professional practice equates to over 2 decades of industry experience within both interior design and visual merchandising for retail within the UK, mainland Europe, and also Beijing. The knowledge obtained around brand presentation, consumer buying habits, and spatial design has played a critical role to inform course content and course validation relevant to industry standards, allowing students the opportunity for personal autonomy adhering to specific deliverables, again providing problem-solving scenarios which challenge the students to apply a critical approach to their work, and also get them to sort of present to industry, which helps to build on their resilience and self-efficacy that's associated with that as well. My cultural heritage plays a critical role to inform my practice. If you can't tell by my accent, I was born and raised in Birmingham, England, and I was really privileged to have parents who appreciated the beauty within our community and the importance of representation through the arts. The work of artist Daniel Hartman and photographer Vanley Burke, who you see on this presentation, provide the depiction of what it means to be young, gifted and Black, a concept which has never been taught through state school. As I developed an appreciation for art, I was inspired by the textile artist Althea McNish, whose rich textile prints depict a sense of Caribbean nostalgia, which was reminiscent of my parental home. Should I fast forward to 2005, and actually understanding who I was and also my sexuality, I was introduced to the South African visual artist who's unapologetic about telling the stories around the Black queer community within the country of South Africa. And I think all these elements really help to inform and structure the direction of not just what I put into my course, but also how that helps the student themselves. So I then move on to how societal factors influence my curriculum. And as outlined earlier within my presentation, action research plays a critical role to my academic practice. And again, it's a circular process to promote EDI, student engagement, and also employability. The African philosophy Ubuntu is the Bantu language, which originates again from Southern Africa, and its values are associated with compassion, dignity, harmony, and respect to each other. The objective is to nurture both connection and collaboration within our community, something which I feel, again, can be translated within the classroom environment. And again, this is to help to coach the student. And again, that leads on to liminality, the transitional process of leaving behind an old identity to become something new. And again, this is a process which I feel is applicable to the growth of our students across this undergraduate course, and all factors which are elements within the case studies of this inquiry that I have put together today. So the first case study that I've really looked into is my previous employer, which was Nottingham Trent University. And the catalyst behind that was looking at societal issues and how that informed fashion and fashion marketing. And 2 years on from the powerful symbolism of inequalities and systematic injustice, which is a wake-up call to the globe, not forgetting the brutality inflicted on Black and brown individuals prior to this momentous moment. Companies and fashion-related brands stood in solidarity to support the Black Lives Matter movement, and some faced criticism in form of ostracism. Having seen the number of students cover this incident in a summer project, I took the initiative to collaborate with Blueprint for All, formerly known as Stephen Lawrence Trust, to create a marketing and social media strategy which enticed students to nominate change makers within their local community. An opportunity for students to apply marketing theories and skills to a real-life brief, which resulted in an art exhibition of the space for both family and friends to attend, which then later turned into a competition, which was led and spearheaded by myself, but also had facilitated with the interim dean, and again, a milestone to leverage the student employability within the 4 award categories that you see on the screen. So with this said, I've then thought about, and bearing in mind that around this time we were sort of coming out of lockdown, and I sort of wanted to make a shift and reevaluate how I could use my practice to amplify the role of social justice within the fashion-based curriculum. And as a former external examiner for the fashion marketing course, what I was really struck by was the alignment between the UEL's values and also my personal beliefs, which are centered around courage, diversity and inclusion, along with the proposition of being a career-led institution. The concept around be the change was something that really enticed me to apply to the university and again to contribute to make a difference for young people. So my case study, the second part, is the University of East London. And again, when I started this role, I started to sort of think about, started to mind map the how, the what and the why. I would start to think about addressing not just course content, but also the structure of the FM course itself, really. And looking at applying all the different elements that are aligned to not just the university thematic pillars, but also the importance of equity and inclusion and how that supports the student experience, their well-being, the different learning resources that's relevant to inclusivity, and also the different types of language that would be used to support our students who go into industry or just want to develop their professional skills as they go through the course. This is then broken down into the vision and strategy of what the FM course currently offers and how this will be implemented from September onwards. So we're looking at the theme of innovation and excellence, with the academic framework behind that is centered around the Design Council framework and the Ikigai and an Ikigai model, which is a Japanese model about what you would like to get paid for, also what you love, etc., and what you're good at. However, if I go back to the infographic, which is on the left, and taking the UEL acronym, I actually thought about creating it applicable to each level of year. So it defines our student experience throughout this 3-year undergraduate course. So at level 4, you've got upgrading our students and, you know, being based in the borough of Newham. You know, for some students, it's their first time going to university. So again, it's making sure that we can encapsulate and look at their skills to help build them to then become, at level 5, become employable, and then at level 6, you know, hopefully for them to become sort of like leaders. So there's, as you can see on the bottom right, we've got the level leaders associated to the course structure itself, which is myself looking at level 4 and also applying that to level 6 as well. You've got Sharon Hughes at level 5 and then Alison Lowe at level 6. So again, our specialisms are all relevant to enriching our student experience. So I'll now move on to sort of planning an inclusive curriculum. And for this particular case, I wanted to start with the bell hooks quote, which is something that has been quite poignant throughout my PG search, and also how I then realistically embed that within my practice. And I think, you know, applying this, any radical pedagogy must insist that everyone's presence is acknowledged. And, you know, I think for me, it's almost the matriarch and patriarch behind the whole theme around equity and inclusion for this curriculum. So the recommended reading list of what supports the mental wealth module in question that I will be addressing throughout this presentation. And this is just an overview of the different types of books. And again, Teaching to Transgress and the quote I've just used is actually from that book. But the additional links to support both equality and employability are centred around Jane Elliott and the PricewaterhouseCoopers workforce for 2023. But also, in addition to that, my industry feedback is always an important part to understand the qualities and skills that the industry professionals are looking for when actually obtaining graduates for entry-level roles. And the notion around looking at creative storytellers, champion EDI and also mental wealth, collaborative and being a team player. And these were elements of what were mentioned in Andrea and Prabha's earlier presentation, and looking at sort of like critical thinking and commerciality, which would be relevant to the fashion marketing industry. And again, you can see the digital advancements and software packages, which, you know, as we have a need, as we drive into the metaverse, these are things that we're looking at as well. But also not forgetting the different types of consumer behaviours and buying habits that we do have, and understanding the economical and environmental factors which inform fashion. So again, when planning my curriculum, I thought I would break down the student voice, and I must be honest, I was slightly quite envious with the previous numbers of student numbers of 150, because our cohorts are fairly small, but we are looking at really increasing that for recruitment purposes. But our level 6 students, we're currently at the number of 16, but I thought this would be really quite poignant to break down the ethnicity of our students. And again, you can see for level 6, we've got 9 students who would be classed as white, 6 who are black, and we've then got 2 who are under the umbrella of dual heritage. And then for level 5, it's the same, you know, the colour palette is still very much defining who the colour ethnicity of each student. Our attainment gap for 2021, having gone through Power BI, is at sort of like 13.9%. Now, this is something to really work on. And again, I'm sort of talking to that, reviewing our attainment gap for 2022, and wanted to sort of, that's a whole research opportunity there itself to define more qualitative and quantitative data, which truly reflects the FM course, the FM undergraduate course. So the client, which was used within UEL, was the Fashion Minority Report, and this is an ex-colleague of mine from Burberry who is now the founder of Fashion Minority Report. And again, this was all established from post George Floyd. And the scenario for students were tasked to work in groups to create a 10-minute route to consumer marketing strategy around the Fashion Minority Report, which is called FMR Learning Hub. And again, this was aligned to the mental wealth competencies for our level 6 programme, which was FT 6015. So students were tasked to work in groups over a 12-week module, and in conjunction with that, I'd arranged an unconscious bias collaboration with the OIE department. Fitzroy Andrews delivered a really valuable and insightful presentation around unconscious bias and how that feeds into the narrative of fashion marketing as well, and also getting students to address their own personal bias. And this is something that's sparked the catalyst of how term 1 for 2022 will be developed, really focusing on how culture informs fashion. Here's a bit of an infographic of what one of the student groups presented in relation to defining their insights from primary research that they presented direct to sort of Daniel Peters. And then to leverage the student confidence, resilience, and self-efficacy throughout the 12-week module, formative presentations were given back to in student groups, and my feedback to them as well would be sort of defined within specific language and descriptors that would let them know exactly where I thought that they were sitting in preparation for their summative submission for this particular client brief. So I am now going to stop speaking, and what I'm going to do is hand over to this my level 6 students for you to really understand what their perspective was on this module. And also, I'm just going to play this video, which is 1 minute 49 seconds, just to give you an insight on what it is that they thought about this Fashion Minority Report and what they learned throughout the process.
Hey, we're creators.
We had the greatest opportunity to work on the FMR project with Daniel Peters, and it's been a great experience expressing in the narrative.
Bell Hooks says that any radical pedagogy must insist that everyone's presence is acknowledged. Our presentation was a great opportunity to create a platform to raise awareness for neurodiversity, and we hope to see future brands and companies develop their own approach to this.
All around today's been a really insightful, productive day. I've learned a lot on this project, really enjoyed working on it. Yeah.
It's been insightful. #CalcCreatives. Yay.
Hello, we're Point of Difference. We presented to Daniel Peters. Our unique selling point is that we are creating a space for young ethnic minority creatives and to help them with getting into the industry.
Hi, we're ASL, Alice, Sophia and Lauren, and our group project was based around feminism.
We really enjoyed working with a live client because it gave us a feel as to what real industry is going to be like.
We really enjoyed working on this project and we feel that we've managed to take valuable skills that we can use in the industry.
Hi there, we are the Internationals and we are very lucky to work with FMR on this fantastic project. We managed to actually explore quite in depth how to help minorities in our own countries coming from Spain and Poland, and was very insightful to just learn so much about the communities that normally are overlooked.
Yeah, I personally learned a lot about what I can do in my country to have an impact on it.
Thank you, FMR and Daniel.
Hi, we are SCK. We've just presented to Daniel Peters at Fashion Minority Project report.
Our project was based on a collaboration with UEL and FMR. It was a really great opportunity for us to present in front of industry professionals and get feedback on all of our work.
We have a great time and we're really thankful to Daniel for this opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
So just to conclude, having sort of just seen that video, the conclusions based on that of sort of what went well. So the students really enjoyed, as you can see, the live projects and presenting direct to the founder for instant feedback. Again, incorporated societal issues within the curriculum, fostered debate, and all viewpoints were acknowledged and respected. And again, cross-departmental collaboration with OIE and also external relations was a really great element to sort of enrich our student experience. Challenges throughout the 12-week module, there was some conversations around some students not feeling as though they couldn't be able to say the right thing. There was conflict within, group dynamics. So there was a whole introduction of Thomas Kilman, of conflict management, at the start that was introduced early on in the module so that students could refer back to. And also in relation to having shown my first case study, which was Nottingham Trent, identifying how culture informs fashion was also a way of getting students to understand that, because it was a different type of approach that they had also been used to. And ensuring that cultural events are celebrated across the whole year, really not just defining sort of, for example, International Women's Day, which is in March, Black History Month, which is just in October, and having that sort of transition throughout the whole year is something that will be taken forward. So I've just put some key recommendations down. So I do think that there's linking back to the Design Council framework from September, from term one, obviously more cross-departmental collaboration with the accessibility team. Again, revisiting and liaising with Fitzroy Andrews and the OIE team on revisiting the whole bias workshop and how that's applicable within the fashion marketing core structure. Term two, we're going to be looking at intersectionality within the fashion faculty and looking at that as a theme. Again, I don't know whether there's the opportunity to look at sort of like allyship or anti-racist training for both students and staff, and making that a mandatory element for all students to help to create a better, a more enriched area or sense of belonging. And again, that also feeds into really focusing on the recruitment for new academic staff and what that language looks like to entice people to join UEL. In addition to that, big ideas that I'm thinking about which could help to develop the impact for defining the UEL core values of courage, diversity, and inclusion. The fashion academics creating fashion academics creating equality have currently been doing a summit, which is at Central St Martin's, and whether or not there's an opportunity there that we could look at UEL, and to define this point of difference and also amplify the great work of what's been done as well. A Black leadership program within fashion marketing is also something else that's key consideration and thinking about. And then also an intersectionality symposium is something as well in relation to sort of like really pushing the direction of where not just at course level, but also within the university itself. And as mentioned earlier, in relation to term one, these are just a series, an overview of what the term one, talks look like, to look at how culture informs fashion. And we're not just talking about fashion within and its product, but also the lifestyle of fashion. So looking at curation, looking at travel, scent, etc., and also how all those elements really inform fashion marketing itself. So my concluding message is how, with that presentation that I've just showed, my final message is, so how are you demonstrating inclusivity in your practice? And this is something we can carry on with in discussion afterwards. But I just thought I would end on this. And with that said, that is my presentation.
Thank you, Jason. Covered many different points there, a whole range of topics I'm sure people have questions for you on. Yeah, so thank you very much. Great presentation. So just going to open this up to the floor now. If there's anyone that's got any questions now for our presenters, now's the opportunity to switch your camera on if you want to, switch your mic on, and have some questions. I know I've got a few anyway, but if anyone else would like to come forward, now's your opportunity to.
I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah, sure. Who's that? Is that Donna?
So it's Donna. Yeah, it's Donna.
Hi,
Hi.
Donna.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Andrea, Prabha, Jason. Fantastic. Lots of ideas that I'm thinking about. But the thing that interests me really is how you do cross school collaborations. And I think it's really interesting, Andrea and Prabha working together and developing that. And something that came out from Jason around the students having to do conflict workshops and the presumptions we make about them having skills to develop soft skills. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to roll that out and work together more so that's really embedded for students?
Yeah, for me, like with that presentation, just sorry, just jump in real quick. I could see that there was probably like opportunities on there that through Jason's presentation, obviously mentioning a lot of like kind of business aspects as well. And obviously you've got marketing's quite a broad subject. I was just interested to know off the back of those like competitions and of that community work as well. Were there any possible collaborations that you was looking to move into, Jason?
I'm always quite open for collaboration, and I think that only enriches, not just what we do as academics, but also, at course level, it's about leveraging our student experience. So both Andrea and Prabha, we've had like mild conversations before today around our presentation, but I'm quite happy to sort of discuss that even further. Possibly looking at term two and seeing how that could, how we could work together, because there is a lot of synergy between what we both presented today. And I think to be able to unite our concepts and also obtain both qualitative and quantitative data, I think it would be really beneficial to be able to look at that, but post term two, if that would be fine with with yourselves.
Yeah. So there's probably an opportunity there to, to move that forward, that conversation forward. Andrea, just before I really jumped in, you was about to say something. So yeah, if you
sure.
want to mention that now, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's been, great working with Prabha and Sophia and to do this collaboration, but also learning about Jason. We met a couple of times before today, and his work is fantastic. So, but coming back to Donna's question, that one of the problems we have sometimes at UEL, and I could say everywhere, is that we don't communicate well. So there are many things going on in different places, but then we don't know about them. So what I could do, not now, after, there is a video of the Wellbeing and Psychological Services Center where we explain all the things that we could do in collaboration with other model wealth leaders. So I'm happy to share that, and I'm happy for anyone, here or someone that to approach us and to discuss how we can work together. But also, well, after this presentation, I would also like to work with Jason and with other people, because I think we all bring, different perspectives and different approaches to this mental wealth model. That it happened my first day at UEL. My dean of school said, Andrea, you are part of that commit. And that was the mental wealth commit. And I just wanted to die. It was my first day there. But there was a lot of discussion in those meetings, about what this model was for. And some people were, against the model. And I could say that with the perspective of the years, we can say that there are too many things we could do with this model to improve our students' experience and learning. So that's.
Yeah, I can see Rob's jumped on camera. Yeah. Rob, have you got a question?
Yeah, I just want to pick up on what Andrea was saying there. So I'm 14 months at the university, and I'm leading the mental wealth module, some of the mental wealth modules in construction and engineering. And I sort of pick up on what you're saying there, Andrea. I genuinely see what UEL have got here is something that's actually quite a differentiator from a lot of other universities. And I'm not quite sure what other people are doing. So I'm sort of sticking my hand up and saying, yeah, if there's something going on and we can all come together. I appreciate, Kevin, there was some stuff that happened before I joined that sort of set the ball rolling. Well, is anything happening now? Is anything continuing that's taking that forward? And if there is, how can I be a part of it, really?
Yeah, so, obviously there's different platforms and different working groups to engage with. And I know that obviously the fashion department of, kind of took the lead in some of those areas, around inclusion and diversity. So, yeah, I think it's a case of seeing what's available, getting on those committees, and then being able to see that or hear that conversation, get into that communication portal, and then really get the opportunity to see what's being done, and not just having these events are brilliant, great way of hosting a conversation, but these conversations are kind of happening in and around the institution. So as they develop, as they flourish, we get the opportunity to expand and collaborate, kind of like what we're seeing here now. Has anyone got any other questions about today's presentations? Prabha, in terms of just the the time, just one quick question before we finish up. Obviously, that was quite a big cohort that you was working with, and managing all of those fairly small groups through like group coaching and team coaching. What were the logistics like in an operational kind of understanding, if other members of staff were to initiate that as a pilot project themselves?
So I think the person who would be best placed to answer that is Sophia. So the way our collaboration worked was I was trying to bring in the evidence from my own research on teamwork and present it to members of staff. I think Andrea was here to kind of provide the coaching, and Sophia, I know, I don't know if Sophia is here around, but either she can pitch in, because I know that it's a logistic nightmare.
Well, I have to say, it's not just me by far. It's Ardiana, actually, who probably bore say 60 to 70% of the brunt, but the other 30, which was me, it was a complete nightmare. Because what obviously it's the ins and outs and technicalities, but students chose a paper blind. They didn't know who would be the lecturer associated with that paper. They just knew the title. They could read the paper quickly, decide they want to present that paper. They did not know who the other members of the team would be because they were choosing blind. And there were groups of 3, very rarely 4, for the purposes of course numbers not adding up correctly to groups of 3. Then we had to fit these groups into coaching sessions of 8 to 10. So it was mathematically, like a fitting kind of process. And I cannot tell you how many times Ardiana would send me a chat message fairly late in the evening. Can we have a quick chat now? Because it's the truth of the matter is because it was a pilot. It was organized probably a bit too late in in beginning of term 2, because the idea was born quite late, so to say, and then it's a technical time, and therefore for it to be meaningful, students were presenting it in week 7. We had to give them the assignment no later than week 3. They had to have started coaching sessions in week 3 too. So it was very, very, very hard. The truth of the matter is it was so hard that because I have other responsibilities this year as well, I would not like to repeat this in the same format, in that we would have to start doing things much earlier if this is going to go forward this year, because I just physically am not going to be able to fork out the time and the sort of the administrative effort. But fantastically, mostly due to Ardiana's absolute sort of determination, it did work in the end. The numbers ended up matching somehow. The sessions went through, students attended, and that sort of thing. So, I mean, if Ardiana is around here, you should see the face of the person who's put so many hours in this project, because it really was amazing that she did what she did. Hello, Ardiana. Good to see you. Always lovely to see your smiley face. But yeah, this is the person who actually, like I said, did 70% of the admin work. I probably did the other 30, but my 30 were hard enough. I cannot even talk about Ardiana, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia.
Can I just maybe add to that, because, when I heard the keynote speaker in the morning, she brought out a very powerful quote from her research on staff members and how the academic communities are changing, and the fact that maybe during the pandemic, when we had a shared interest that we want the ship to be running, the ship to be sailing, as you would say, you start realizing what professional services can bring in. So as we're thinking about these collaborations, what we kind of need to factor in is that these projects in reality require a lot of inputs, not just from 2 schools and not just from staff members, the academic members from the schools, but we have to start rethinking about involving professional services, especially our administrative members of staff, in dealing with the complexities, especially that comes around logistics involved with such projects. And I think that's going to be very crucial as we move forward, and maybe pitch in funds for especially administrative responsibilities, and value those efforts as well. It's important that we do that.
So there's some really nice points there in terms of reflections, lots to learn from, looking ahead and moving forward with projects and collaboration between teams. I'd like to thank again the presenters today and attendees for the session.